Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting smart about interesting stuff, with a few facts and hopefully enough fun to keep you listening. Today, we are definitely diving deep into something that got a lot of people talking. That boxing match between Jake Paul, the influencer who's now a boxer, and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., the former champ with a, let's say, complicated story. So, our goal here is really to peel back the onion on this one, go past the quick headlines, look at how they actually performed, unpack all the controversy that just seems to follow Jake Paul everywhere, and figure out what this fight really means for him, for his whole boxing dream, and maybe even for, the sport itself. It's quite a tangled web.
Oh, absolutely. Because this fight, it really split people, didn't it? Boxing folks, fans, everyone had an opinion. It brings up these big questions, like experience versus youth. What even is a legitimate matchup these days? It tells you a lot about where boxing might be going.
Okay, so let's get into the fight itself, the official result. Jake Paul wins, unanimous decision. Scorecards were 99-91, 97-93, 98-92, 10 rounds, Honda Center, Anaheim. Standard stuff on paper, but like you said, the story wasn't just the result. For a lot of people watching, the big takeaway was Chavez Jr., how inactive he was, especially right at the start. What was your take on that, seeing it unfold?
It was pretty stark, honestly. Rounds 1 through 5, right? He threw only 36 punches, landed just 8. And just to compare, Jake Paul landed 22 punches in the first 2 rounds alone. There were rounds Chavez threw 0 jabs. 0. And for the first, 7 rounds, he landed fewer than 2 punches a round. It wasn't just slow, it was almost absent.
That kind of approach, or maybe lack of approach, it seems almost impossible at this level. Was there any, tiny chance that could have worked, or does it just scream, the other issues we know he's had?
Well, if you look at his history, it kind of fits the narrative. Unfortunately, he's had these high-profile disappointments before. And the struggles, the discipline, weight, addiction, it's all documented. The corner's idea, it seems, was just to let Jake punch himself out for 6 rounds. But that's not a viable plan in a 10-round fight. Not to get someone throwing volume. He was tough, sure.
Yeah.
He was that tough as nails, kept eye guard, but he only really showed flashes of anything, fire in the last couple of rounds. And even those were close. You just can't give away that much fight.
And the fans watching, they were not happy. Online, Reddit especially, people were throwing around things like paid not to try or fixed, calling it an embarrassment. Some said he looked like a punching bag. I mean, that's really harsh, but watching it live, could you feel that frustration? Was it justified or just heat of the moment stuff?
I think you could understand the frustration, yeah. You tune in expecting a fight, especially with the Chavez name involved. That level of passivity. It just didn't meet anyone's expectations, whatever the reasons behind it.
Okay, so let's flip it. Let's talk Jake Paul. Because even with Chavez being so inactive, Paul kept throwing punches. Nearly 50 a round for a lot of the fight. Totaled 482 punches. People watching called that a pretty damn good output, especially when the other guy wasn't really forcing the action.
Absolutely. And what stood out offensively for Jake, his jab, it was described as very, very good, very consistent. He threw, 300 jabs?
Wow.
Yeah, huge number. And his body work was effective, too. That smashing right hook to the body, the jab downstairs, you could see him trying things, making adjustments. People noted his ring IQ, his shot selection seemed better, throwing uppercuts through the guard, driving in behind the jab to land the right. He was actively working, trying to implement stuff.
He wasn't perfect, though. He definitely showed some fatigue later on, right? Rounds 8, 9, 10. And Chavez actually landed some decent shots then. Too little, too late, obviously, but he did connect. Someone noted Jake has a better chin than people realize, but maybe doesn't take body shots that well.
Yeah.
So yeah, high output, but still vulnerable.
Definitely vulnerable, which makes his whole journey even more interesting, doesn't it?
Right, because to really get this fight, you have to zoom out. Look at the whole Jake Paul picture. This wasn't just one night in Anaheim. It's part of this ongoing saga full of controversy that has the boxing world completely split.
Yeah. And that split was obvious even before the fight. Just look at what boxing people were saying. It was all over the place. You had guys like Mike Perry saying Jake had developed real skill, that this could be a turning point. Oscar De La Hoya, he acknowledged Jake was fighting a real boxer this time, praised his smarts as a promoter, handling the business and the performance. Teofimo Lopez saw it as a positive step. Even Chavez Sr., Julio's father, gave Jake props for improving, for taking it seriously.
But then you had the other side. Big names just not buying it.
Exactly. Manny Pacquiao basically said, look, I don't take this guy seriously as a pro boxer. Called him an outsider. Robert Garcia was sure Julio's experience would be way too much. Jeff Mayweather kind of put it down to picking guys past their prime. like the Mike Tyson fight,
Mhm.
more about the name than the current challenge.
And then Dana White, the UFC guy, just laughing it off, saying he didn't even know Jake was fighting.
Right, which just shows how unusual this whole path is in the fight game. It really highlights that tension. Is this sport or is this entertainment? Jake Paul lives right in that messy middle.
And his opponent selection, it's clearly been strategic. You can see the steps. Started with YouTubers like Deji, then an NBA player, Nate Robinson, then moved on to MMA guys Askren, Woodley twice, Anderson Silva. Now, Chavez Jr., a former world boxing champ. The context matters, right? Chavez Jr. is 39. He hadn't held a major belt in 13 years, only fought once in the last 3.5 years. His recent record was 4-4. And this comes after that Mike Tyson fight, who was 5'8". That one was called his most infamous.
And that pattern is exactly what fuels the criticism. He says he's serious, developing new tools, but critics keep saying he avoids active, dangerous boxers in his actual weight class. So while it looks like progress on paper, YouTuber, athlete, MMA star, former champ, the condition and recent activity of those opponents, that seems very carefully managed to look good without being, perhaps, overly risky.
Which leads to this weird situation. He gets insane media coverage. He's one of the highest paid boxers out there, number 4 in 2024, supposedly $48 million. But his record, the guys he's fought, critics still call it lackluster, not earned the hard way. How does that even happen? How do you explain that?
It really comes down to his skill as a promoter. He knows how to make noise, how to sell a fight. That Chavez Jr. fight, it set a gate record at the Honda Center, $1.57 million, and the pay-per-view numbers were apparently huge, second only to his fight with Nate Diaz. So he generates money. He generates headlines. And in today's world, that celebrity, that narrative, that promotional engine, sometimes it can generate more success financially anyway than just pure boxing merit. It's changing the game's economics.
Okay, so we've picked apart the fight, his career path. The big question hanging over all of this, does beating Chavez Jr. actually move the needle? Does it make his goal of being a world champion seem any more, real?
Well, Jake Paul certainly thinks so. Yeah. He's calling this the end of Chapter 1, the start of Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Says he's all in on boxing now. And he's not shy about the goal to world champion by the end of 2025. He even said, God told me it was his sacred responsibility to do it, to inspire kids, create this huge underdog story.
Wow. Okay, and he backed that up with call-outs after the fight, didn't he?
Wow.
Name some serious guys.
Oh, yeah. Gilberto, Zurdo Ramirez, the cruiserweight champ who fought on the same card, Badou Jack, Anthony Joshua, Gervonta Davis, a Tommy Fury rematch.
He even accused Canelo Alvarez of ducking him, said Canelo was bought. That's ambitious, doesn't quite cover it.
It really is. And if you look at those names, it's complicated. Zurdo Ramirez won his fight that night, but some people thought he looked a bit slow, flat-footed. Paul saw that and called him easy work. So he's definitely looking for openings' perceived weaknesses.
But the general feeling from boxing experts is still, he's just not ready for guys like Zurdo or Badou Jack.
Right.
Not yet. A lot of people think the fight that makes the most sense, the one that would actually prove something, is the Tommy Fury rematch. Because Fury's style, that jab-heavy volume pressure, that's what beat him before. Winning that rematch would answer real questions. Even though he lost, Jake still says he'd smoke Fury next time. That seems like the logical next test, maybe.
I tend to agree. That feels like the most legitimate next step for proving boxing progress.
Yeah.
As for Anthony Joshua, Paul says that's looking very likely for next year. They've messaged directly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the size difference alone against a true heavyweight like AJ experts are rightly concerned about that. It feels like Jake's operating on 2 tracks. The gradual step-up fights, and then these massive, almost fantasy-level call-outs that keep his name huge.
It's also interesting, beyond the ring stuff, when he talks about his why, his motivation. He mentions wanting to inspire kids who feel like cookie cutters, show them they can break the mold. And then there's the stuff that maybe doesn't get as much attention. His contributions to boxing, especially for women's boxing, pushing for athletes, backing events, plus renovating gyms, giving out gloves. That's a different side.
It is. It makes him a really complex figure, doesn't it? You've got the brash promoter, the controversial fighter, but also this guy who seems genuinely invested in giving back using his platform. He's sort of this blend of savvy entrepreneur and maybe unexpected philanthropist. And by doing all this, he's forcing everyone to reconsider what a modern athlete even looks like, challenging the old ways of boxing. That's pretty significant.
So wrapping this deep dive up, we're left with Jake Paul. This puzzle. Was beating Chavez Jr. a real step up, proof of legitimacy, or just another smart move, great promotion, picking the right opponent at the right time? We definitely found some answers, but maybe, like Jake Paul himself, the whole thing just leaves you with more questions in the end.
Yeah, and maybe the biggest question to chew on is what his whole rise means for boxing's future. Are we going to see more celebrity crossovers? Is that line between sport and entertainment just going to keep getting blurrier? Or will the old school demands of the sport, the tough climb, eventually win out? And for you listening at home, what does it take for a fighter like this to really earn your respect, to convince you they're the real deal?
Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.